If you need more context, please look at the previous parts before this one.
His opinion of the Supreme Court decision banning prayer in schools.
It was not banning prayers in schools. You can pray in public schools. You just can't essentially force people to pray with you or have the big thing. The big the big thing that says, "Hey, go to class or else," type of thing. Listen, I'm homeschooled, so I might be saying it wrong. But point is, you can pray. You just can't force anybody else to pray with you, pretty much, in a sense. It's basically secularism of playing field, basically. An atheist can't force you to anti-pray with them, in a sense, and you can't do the same. Well, the opposite, obviously. You can't pray. If I'm correct, you can pray out loud. It depends on the public school, but generally speaking, you can, but you can't necessarily force anybody else to. You can pray. You just can't pray in a sense like they used to, where you were basically forced to pray, like it was like the Pledge of Allegiance. You don't have to do that because everybody's a Christian, religious. And some parents, in their opinion, don't want their religious indoctrination shoved down their kids' throats. So,
the president says
the Supreme Court has made a judgment. A good many people obviously will disagree with it. Others will agree with it.
Prayer was ended in school first in 1962. But then
again, it was not ended. Forced public prayer, like Pledge of Allegiance, was banned, which makes sense, and that was the right call.
And in 1963, Bible reading.
And I would hope that
again, Bible reading, same thing. If I'm correct, yes, you can have your you can have your personal Bible with you. You can read it. Just if I'm correct, you can't read it during class, obviously, because it's class. But you can read it, at lunch or on the playground, whatever. You just can't force anybody else to, or it's like the Pledge of Allegiance. You have to. Everybody has to read the Bible or listen to you reading the Bible, because again, not everybody is Christian, and some parents don't want that. That's even playing field. That makes sense. I would say the same thing with certain things about LGBTQ plus, like, I don't know, complex gender, whatever. Something that's not appropriate for children. Like, yeah, have your pride flag there, and you don't need to force everybody else to be like, acknowledge the pride flag or else. Which really doesn't happen, but point stands, that's the even playing field. That should be the even playing field there.
As a result
Makes
of the
sense.
decision that all American parents will intensify their efforts at home.
Would you...
That makes sense. If you want essentially a theocracy, do it at home, in a sense. If you want pride flags everywhere at home, you can do that too, just not at public schools. That makes sense, and that's fair.
Go to court if you had to pray in school. Why? What?
Some people aren't religious.
I know, and there's, I guess, a shocker to this movie here that some aren't.
And what does that mean?
And that means that it wouldn't be fair for them to have to pray in school.
When people start talking about
that makes sense.
Back to the schools or bringing God back to the schools, these are people who are demonstrating their ignorance because.
I know they are, because they're trying to say we want people to be forced to pray and forced to read the Bible again. It's like, no, that's not right. I don't know that's what they're going to say, but...
Because government education was founded for the purpose of usurping religion and God.
It wasn't, but... Smile and wave, folks. Like... No, it's meant to educate. It wasn't meant to be anti-God. It was meant to be pro-even playing field. They can't understand that, apparently.
There is something...
Or say they don't understand it. I think they can. They have the ability to, but they just either don't want to out of ignorance or out of, I chose to not understand. Which is their choice.
Wrong with our education system. And
That's not what's wrong with our education system. It's a lot of other things. Not forcing everybody to pray or read the Bible. That's not the big fish. It's just not the big fish, folks. It's a lot of other things. It was not that.
I didn't realize it until I had my political awakening and stopped believing a lot of these woke ideas. But then once I found God,
Define woke.
my eyes were opened even more, and I'm like, yo, the education system has been brainwashing kids for generations. They're playing the
to basically be like, oh yeah, some people don't believe in God and they have the right to not have God shoved down their throats because it's a public assembly. That is apparently brainwashing, folks. That's apparently bad. Letting people freely not have God being shoved down their throats and God to be shoved down their throats in a personal sense, not in a weird, dirty sense. Dirty people, you know who you are. Apparently that's anti-freedom. Freedom is slavery, basically, to them, I guess. I mean, I don't know.
the long game here.
The long game.
You know, I remember when I was in the 6th grade, I'll never forget this. There was a moment where, because I heard it from a student, I said, you know what? I'm not going to stand during the Pledge of Allegiance. I didn't know what the flag meant. I didn't.
What? Oh, no. Listen, my opinion is that the reason why we do that is because to show some type of unity. And yes, it has under God, and, you know, you could be like, under God or not under God. You know, it was put in. Point is, for me, I think it should be mandated, but based on the history of the Pledge of Allegiance, I can understand why some don't. And if I'm correct, there was a famous situation with a young black kid in the 60s during Jim Crow and all those things refused not to because they were basically pulling what I would say what a lot of people had before this black kid, obviously, kind of were like, I refuse to do the Pledge of Allegiance because the Pledge of Allegiance is not what America is doing. Basically, they were protesting the right way of not standing up and doing the Pledge of Allegiance because they believed that their country was actively against them. So for them to basically be like, well, no, you're not doing it right. Basically, it was like, I'm not pledging my allegiance to a flag that is allowing the deaths of my people, which makes sense. But I think her story is a little bit less like that, obviously. And my opinion should be mandated, but I do understand why some people have a problem with it, and some people are like, I'm not going to pledge allegiance to a flag that is doing a lot of bad stuff right now, and I believe that's their choice, but, you know, maybe you have to leave, but, you know, it depends. I think it depends. Ideally, it should be mandated, but realistically, maybe not. Maybe not.
I didn't understand the privilege I had in America, and so I just decided just to sit. And
yeah, and you should, in a sense, have that right to do that, because a lot of people believe that they're pledging allegiance to a flag that is not doing what it should do. That's why some people kneel at the national anthem, because they believe that we're not living up to those ideals, at least to the point where it's like it's noticeable. It's like we're just actively against our ideals of this country and nation. I think to an extent, I think you should have the freedom to do that. If I'm correct, the Supreme Court says yes, you can, because Trump was trying to jail people for burning the flag, but the Supreme Court, a very conservative one, if I'm correct, from the Republican, is like, no, they have the right to do that. That's freedom of expression. That's protected there. No violence there, really, but I highly recommend doing that, but you have the freedom to do that.
And not pledge allegiance. And it's scary that they got me that early. That is nuts to me. So going.
Okay, so they got you that early, meaning a friend. I think she said a friend did it, or a friend told her that somebody did. And who's they? That's just a anecdote. Who's they here? Did the teachers started encouraging you to do that? Because it didn't seem like, based on your story, that they did. This is just weird. the right is weird sometimes,
But going
folks.
back to this, the Bible is my source of morality. It is
Oh, yep, it's your source of morality. You shouldn't force that onto other people, and vice versa.
a handbook.
Bada bing,
I
bada
like to
boom.
call it the basic instructions before leaving Earth. And it provides me with values on how I'm supposed to live my life, what I'm
Me
supposed
too.
to give my attention to, and just all kinds of things
Really
that
great things,
we
actually.
encounter in our day to day. Whenever I have a problem, whenever I'm confused about something, whenever I encounter some obstacle, I go to the Bible. That's what I do. Instead of Googling, no, I go to the Bible. What does God say?
Depending on what it is, yeah, I guess, but the Bible can't say everything. Like how to cook shellfish. I'll go to the Bible first. Okay, how to cook shellfish. Oh, shellfish is an abomination to God. Guess I won't eat shellfish today, folks. Sorry, guys, for lunch it's McDonald's. Like, I don't think that's how that works, Gothix. But I get what she means. I think I get what she means, but it's just. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know at this point. I gotta be
about this
honest.
situation? How should I deal with this situation? And that's what it's intended for. So if you take that out of the picture, you're left with, again, people just making things up along.
And it has worked, and it's been working because God's the source of it all, not necessarily the need necessarily. Personally, it's a need, but publicly and federally, not necessary because we have laws. It's like, are you against the rules of football? That's not in nature, but we value it as an objective. Like,
Up along the way and hoping that it works. So in the context of
So,
communists who want to infiltrate our institutions in America,
how? You're not gonna say it, are they?
America, the most
America.
logical way to do that is to get the youth, get them when they're young.
That's true, and Mao did do that with Mao's youth of the Cultural Revolution in China. So that is true. And also Hitler did it with, I don't think it was called Hitler's Children. I think it was Nazis, something, whatever, the brown shirts. So yeah, that's true, but your examples are like, so you're saying freedom's bad. Like, basically.
You know a country is founded on
raw example.
values. What you do is you infiltrate that institution, the education system.
Well, it wasn't necessarily based on Christian values. Maybe culturally, yes, but federally, no. The Declaration of Independence is basically the divorce papers for England in this instance. The Constitution or the laws of the land. One has references to God. The other one has two references to religion. It's Congress shall not. So, culturally, possibly, yes, Christian values, but legally speaking, it's like, no. Secularism, because we've seen the religious wars, we've seen all those things, we saw the French Revolution, so we don't want to go that far, culturally, necessarily, but with our laws, we gotta be like, Congress shall not. Religion. Because Congress has no business of religion. And that is how it should be. That's kind of one of the reasons why we left. That's why kind of one of the reasons why the Pilgrims left. You know? So, I'm just saying, well, to kind of do the same thing, but, you know. I think I'm gonna have a video there about, essential films about, the Pilgrims and all those things, and
system.
Yeah.
And
It's
you
quite
get them
interesting.
while they're young. I think it was, I want to say it was Hitler, I believe. He said something to the effect of those who control the youth control the future, or something like that. And
I think it was he who controls the books controls I think he who controls the youth controls the future, and I think he who controls the books controls the nation. I think he has it there. I'll be able to zoom it in. Hold up. Let's see if this works. Hilo who owns the youth gains the future, thus Hitler youth was born. Yeah, it was called Hitler's Youth. I guess Mao and Hitler both had youths. It makes sense, just wanted. They're both dictatorial, so it makes sense they have something like that in common. Makes sense.
He was absolutely right. If you get these kids when they're young, you're able to sort of mold them into the person that you want them to be in the future.
It's kind of like that's what we were doing before the Supreme Court was like, actually, we want freedom. Christian, or more so Christian nationalism, I would say, was trying to mold people into thinking that forcing people with your religious ideologies was a good thing, and the freedom to not have that was actually bad, which Gothix is, I guess, trying to say. So in a sensible way, she's right, but she's got turned around. You gotta turn around, Gothix. It's the opposite.
And this is why a lot of kids are being taught some really sexually explicit stuff in school.
Not really. Not really, if I'm correct. It depends on what you mean by sexually explicit, and especially now, it's like, are trans people just sexually explicit? Like, what do you mean by that? Come on.
School, they're learning about gender identity, their identity.
Not really. Maybe college, but not, maybe high school, not really like kindergarten. You know, it has extreme examples, but there are exceptions that prove the rule, you know.
Trans, they're getting all of these surgeries and hormones to change their body.
And not really happening, actually, if you actually look at the facts. That's not happening.
Bodies, and it's because
that's not real, Tim.
These communists have infiltrated.
I'm sorry, communism and LGBTQ plus might not mix as much as you think, if I'm correct. Look at the history of it. They don't mix necessarily. Like, what do you mean? What are you talking about?
And they're getting to
what are you?
Young.
No.
If you send your kid off to school for 8 hours a day, there's a chance that all of the values that you've instilled in them is going to be erased, and next thing you...
I don't think so. I mean, yeah, we're... raise a child in the way it should go so they won't fall astray. Just tell them, hey, maybe some things in your public school we might disagree with in the Christian sense, but it's XYZ, you're there to learn. You know, like, got any problems, come to me. Like, I think that's up to the parent. Like, that's one of the parents there. Like, you gotta raise them right. You can't be paranoid. Like, I don't know.
Saying, Mommy, Daddy, I'm trans and I identify as African American.
That this doesn't happen. I'm sorry, that just doesn't happen, Gothix. Live in reality, respectfully. Respectfully.
Like, what? And as far as teaching
I know, right? That doesn't happen.
Darwinism, I kind of laugh at this because...
I know, because it's stupid. Like, Darwinism, yes, yes, there's a real thing, but that's not being taught in schools. What is happening here?
Because it's so interesting, because if we evolved from microorganisms and then monkeys and so on and so forth, we still have to work backwards until we get to the Big Bang, and then we have to...
Kinda. Evolution's different from the Big Bang. The Big Expansion, I should say. The Big Expansion is about the beginning of things. Evolution is the process of how things are with living organisms. So they're kind of two different things there, Gothix.
We have to account for that. Okay, if the Big Bang was created by X, Y, and Z...
Is it created? It wasn't created. It expanded. It just was here. It's a beginning. You don't need a creator. In a sense of that, I do believe that, yes, God in this way created the Big Expansion. When you say let there be light, because if I'm correct, it's quite recent meaning like 2009 or whatever, that I think part of the cell now has light. So a lot of Christians or theistic evolutionists are like, when God said let there be light, there was light. And it was good.
Where did the X, Y, and Z come from? Where did that...
Well, that's the thing. It's like, where did it come from? It's like, well, did it have to come from somewhere? That's the real question. Does it have to come from somewhere?
Where did that come from?
I think it does.
Working back, and there's no explanation for it.
And that's fine. That's okay. We're trying to figure out what it is. And it's fine to say, I don't know. Hey, real quick, if you want to dedicate your life to Christ, aka get saved, or if you're a backslider and want to rededicate your life to Christ, or if you want the baptism of the Holy Spirit with the evidence of speaking with tongues, those prayers are in the description down below.